So, whilst we're waiting for everyone to come in, if we can answer this polling question, how do we feel about LinkedIn? Okay, how would you describe LinkedIn? There's some basic questions on there. So I'm going to launch that now. Hopefully you can all see that. If you could just answer quickly, how do you feel about LinkedIn? Hopefully one of those are a relevant option for you. Hopefully it's sort of okay, otherwise you wouldn't be on this webinar in the first place. Okay.
Good, I can't vote.
Yeah, I'm not allowed to vote. I'd love to vote. You know what? I think looking at those questions, Pete, that it's totally different than what I would have answered a couple of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's the main.
I remember when LinkedIn first came out, and my old sales director at the time said it would never take off, and he actually switched it off and stopped us all from using it for ages because we wouldn't get on the phone and talk to people. I'd love to meet him now, just to tell him he's wrong. So some interesting answers coming in. If you're just joining us, please go into the polls and answer the question, how would you describe LinkedIn? How do you feel about what LinkedIn is used for? We'll give it a couple more minutes, maybe another minute or two.
Yeah, and then we'll get cracking.
Yeah.
Philippe says for him, LinkedIn is 1, 2, and 3 equally. Interesting.
Okay, fair enough.
I like that. If anyone wants to share their ideas in the chat, please do. I would have used to say purely a professional networking platform back in the day, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, and being an ex-recruiter, somewhere you can find a job, obviously. But it's becoming so much more. I think number 3 stands out so much. You know, share ideas, resources, help each other. It's a place to actually, connect, which is the exciting thing. Guys, in the chat pane, if you've done the poll, will you just do me a favor? Let me know in the chat roughly how much time do you spend on LinkedIn each day. So in minutes and hours, how long do you think you spend in LinkedIn each day? Guys on the panel as well, put your answers in. Let's have a little look. So Melissa says 1 hour. Peter says 8 hours. Wow, Peter, that is a long time on LinkedIn. 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, maximum an hour, 5 minutes. Only Sakib's only on 5 minutes. So potentially after this session, you might spend a bit more time on there.
Those of you just joined, if you haven't seen it already, please look at the poll and answer the poll question. How would you describe LinkedIn? So a few multiple choice question there. If you've more than one, please feel free to add some comments in the chat. If you could also add in, how long do you spend on average a day on LinkedIn, or even a week, if that's more relevant.
Andrew Connor says, as little as possible, as I'm bombarded with BD approaches.
Probably me.
Don't let it put you off, Andrew. Don't let it put you off. There's plenty of other benefits to the platform. You don't have to respond to everyone. Mario, how long do you spend on LinkedIn a day?
20 minutes to 30 tops. I'm more active on Twitter, if I'm completely honest. But yeah, around 20, 30.
And Simon, what about you?
It just depends. I do a lot of calls all day, and if I'm working with a third party, then I might be an hour or so, if not more, depending on the meetings, because I like to use it to check out who's on the call with me and what kind of capabilities they've got. Are they technical like myself, or are they senior management? What can I say to them, or which way is appropriate to explain something to someone? So it's more of a directory listing tool for me as well. And some days I'm doing research, so it really depends.
Do you ever get lost scrolling LinkedIn? Do you ever spend lost?
Not generally. My day-to-day busy's so busy, I get distracted from everything. So, you'll start something and then get distracted and then come back and wonder why you've got someone's details open and why they're asking you for a request to connect, etc., or trying to sell you something or offering you a job. So, I feel the pain. Obviously, being a QSA, there aren't too many of us. So we get direct approaches all the time. But it's just good to keep an eye on the market as well, from my perspective.
Yeah, there's a few people. We're still people coming in. We'll just give it another 2 minutes, and there's still people joining us. For those of you who've just joined, if you can, hopefully you can see the polling if you're not on a mobile or something like that. But at the bottom of the screen, if you hover over the bottom of the screen, there's a polling option. Should come up for you to answer the question: how you describe LinkedIn. Really helps us sort of shape some of the things that we talk about today. So please, give us your views on that, and drop in the chat pane if you haven't done so already. Rough estimate of how much time you spend weekly or daily on LinkedIn.
All right, let's get intros kicking off, Pete.
Yeah, no problem. So. Okay, I'll let that poll just run for another minute or so. Okay. So, hi everyone, and welcome to the personal branding for CISOs and security leaders. I'm delighted to see so many of you who have registered for this event. Well over 70 people, so many of which I know, and there's lots of new faces. So welcome, and I look forward to seeing more of you on LinkedIn and various other places. So again, if you haven't seen it, the poll is live. Please check out the poll. Let us know your thoughts on on LinkedIn and its usage. First, I'll just do some introductions. I'm Peter Sanders. For those of you who don't know, I'm the co-founder of Identify Global. We're market leaders in personalised career management and talent acquisition for cybersecurity professionals. I'm also the founder of Keris Approved, which is an industry body which is backed by Crest, aimed at improving the standard of recruitment specifically within cybersecurity. You'll be pleased to hear you don't have to listen to me for the next hour and a half. I'm sure you're sick and tired of hearing from recruiters every single day, because I'm honoured to be joined by some really exciting guests who have given up their time to help you develop and improve your personal brand. First, I've got Sean Anderson, who is the CEO of Hoxo Media. They're the UK's leading inbound marketing agency for recruitment agencies. So Sean is an expert in inbound marketing and social media, and he helps business leaders like me build standout personal brands. Hi, Sean. How you doing?
I'm good, mate. Delighted to be here. Very excited to share some ideas, but also find out a little bit more about the people on this panel, because there's some interesting people joining me.
Fantastic. Also, Mario Platt. Mario is the VP, Head of Information Security at CloudMargin. He's also the Strategy Director for Practical DevSecOps. Mario is an innovative security expert, and I first became aware of Mario after he was speaking at the same event as me, and I was engaged by his passion for SecDevOps, and he led me to follow him and track his content on LinkedIn, and I became more knowledgeable from his area of expertise. Mario, how are you doing?
Very well. Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, you're welcome. And last but not least, Simon Turner, who is a leading expert of PCI DSS advisory for BT. He's a QSA, and he's also a current nominee for the PCI Council Board of Advisors. Simon and I have, had some conversations around, his profile, and we've helped him out, and he's here to talk about the benefits of doing that. So, Simon, how are you doing?
Great, thank you. And again, thanks for inviting me onto the panel. It'd be good to discuss and get other people's views as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea of today is to help you gain better access to opportunities, or get better opportunities. And here's the thing, without the need for a recruiter. And I know that sounds counterproductive to what I do, but so why would I do this? Well, it's simple. There's still companies out there that want to work with recruitment companies, quite a lot. So if you've got a better profile and a better personal brand, it also makes my job easier in placing you as well. But not only that, there's opportunities out there which, you would gain access to without me, and you would get them more often if you had better personal profiles and better personal brands. So I speak with security leaders every single day, and there's a common theme when it comes to your top frustrations and ambitions, that personal branding can help with. Now, they range from, applying for roles where, you're one of about 1 billion candidates, getting access to better opportunities. So, CISO roles that aren't advertised at 40K, maintaining and growing internal support networks, stakeholder engagement, better relationships with the C-suite, or getting more time or access to the CEO or board, or whatever the structure might look like. Delivering impactful security awareness programs, lack of communication and best practice insights, and collaboration with peers. and of course, making the CISO a board level role. So I'm delighted to bring together industry experts to help you today. And Sean is going to give you a marketing expert view on how you can do this, the benefits of doing this, and simple things that you can do today to get access to better opportunities. So Sean, it's a broad umbrella, but I know, having worked with you, you've simplified really, really well, and that's one of the things that you turned a complex, or what is considered a complex situation, into quite a simple process. So, yeah, over to you to start with.
Cool. All right. Well, look, to get a little bit of background on me, just really quickly. So I actually used to work in a similar role to Pete. So, you might look at me as a nightmare as a recruiter, but I used to recruit in technology and transformation roles into the London insurance market, the Lloyd's of London insurance market. And back in 2017, I was due to start my own recruitment agency. But I kind of fell out of love with it. But also at the time, I was looking at starting a business, and in sales, especially recruitment, there's a non-compete clause in your contract, right? So you're not allowed to contact your old clients for a period of time. And I had this brainwave that if I produced content online, on LinkedIn specifically, because I knew I was already connected to a lot of the people I would like to work with in the future. If I produced content that just shared insights, information I had, knowledge, expertise for that 6-month non-compete period, there was nothing contractually that held me against. There's nothing that said in my contract I couldn't do that. So I had this idea I wanted to do it, and I went out to try and find some kind of marketing consultant or agency that could help me, and they didn't exist. They just did not. I couldn't find anyone that knew my market, knew what I was trying to do, that was a price point that I could afford. So I got really excited, and I started doing my own research, and in the end, I found out it was a bigger problem, and I ended up starting a business. So that was 4 years ago. And now we're working with about 250 organizations around the world. I'm personally coaching about 500 recruitment professionals around the world in this space. I've literally done 4 hours of video coaching already this morning. I've got another 2 or 3 this afternoon. So bear with me if my throat goes a bit dry. But so I spend a lot of time on this stuff, and by investing in my own personal brand every single day since March 2017, I've managed to build a global business, which hasn't required me to travel like it would have in the past. I've not required me to pick up the phone. So I haven't even had to send those horrid in-mails that you guys hate. I haven't had to pick up the phone. I've never cold called anyone, which was what my whole skill set was based on. I've managed to give free information away, share insights about me and my life, talk about the credibility that I bring to the table. And as a result, we've been able to build a consistent inbound stream of new customers, conversations. And then I also launched a podcast in January 2019, which is all around telling the stories of recruitment agency growth. And we're now getting about 16,000 global listeners a month as well, which is exciting. So it's all happened through my own kind of insights and just trial and error. There was no coach. I want to ask a quick question in the chat, and I want to ask this out to you guys to put in the chat as well. How long ago do you think it was where you heard this term personal brand? Like, how many years ago, how many months ago did you start to hear personal brand become quite a common thing? Because I don't remember those words ever a few years back. When I started this, it wasn't a phrase I knew. Yeah, look, 2-3 years, 2016. I think we're talking about maximum 3 to 4 years, I think. We hear it a lot now, right? So my first question to the panel, I'm going to start with you, Mario, is why would cybersecurity CISO professionals be interested? I've got my opinions on my industry. Why do you think that there's benefits having a personal brand in your industry?
So I think the types of benefits are twofold. So on one hand, I think it helps you set the expectations on what people can expect from you. Right. So if I go into that is, for instance, I started working with Cloud Margin in September. I had already done some consulting work for them, but when I got in, they already knew what I was about. Right. They already knew how I approach problems. They already knew the type of thinking that I do, how I can see the business objectives, how I can see the impact on operations, and they knew all of that because I write about it. I'm very vocal on how my approaches are often different from some of the security professionals. So it allows, for me, I think that's one of the main benefits. It allows me to set expectations, right? So that people know if the content that I put out is something that you don't feel inclined, that you don't relate to, then it's all good. I'm just not your guy, right? You're looking for someone else, not me, right? And I think from that perspective, I think it's really useful. And the other aspect of keeping on doing that is also the strategic choice of things that you decide to talk about, right? What it is that that you're about and how you are going to position yourself in a particular niche, right? Because just trying to be everything for everyone is not going to work, right? There's too much noise. So finding the thing that you want to be remembered by, and in my case, I decided largely to look at frameworks, so particularly Worldly Mapping and Cynefin Framework, which is applied complexity, and I'm part of those communities, and I talk a lot about applying those principles, those ideas, those theories to information security. And from my perspective, because there is a widening and growing community, I kind of latched on to those communities. And when I was a consultant prior to CloudMargin, it was my customers finding me, right? I wasn't finding them. It was people that already talked about those frameworks, etc. When they started thinking, I need someone to take care of my security, or I need someone to help me with security, they know I speak the same language as them, and they reach out to me because I'm one of the 2 to 5 people on the planet that is trying to apply these ideas and talking about them on a regular basis.
Wow. So it's effectively enabled you to build a digital relationship with people before you've even got any physical interaction with them.
Yep.
Which is incredible. What about you, Simon? You know, you've been recently looking at this quite heavily. What do you think the reason for you was, to invest in personal branding was?
Yeah, so just thinking back, I mean, 2015 was when I started working for a large QSA company doing PCI, and was asked to present at one of the VMware events. So I've kind of been dipping my toe in it a little bit every now and then, but obviously working for BT, so that, the brand that I work with, has enabled me really to kind of put my focus, and especially the last 2 or 3 years, we've been doing a lot of work in a particular area, trying to obviously secure BT and ensure that the credit card information is secure. So that's been real my drivers, because I do a lot of talking. I can talk for England. I do a lot of internal training like yourself. I like to explain to the nth degree about what things are, and realize that actually I've got a skill and I've got a branding and I've got my own internal brand, as it was within BT. So what can I do externally, which has led to opportunities with the PCI Council. I did a talk at the community meeting in Barcelona about compliance in large organizations. I've done a couple of others, Vendorcom webinar, areas specifically targeted at an industry, and that's really what got me to reach out to Pete. Saying to Pete, I've got all this expertise, I've got all this knowledge, I've heard about this personal branding stuff. What is it I'm looking to do? So after a good session and talking to Peter about how you can use LinkedIn, it really has helped, and especially in the last 6 months or so, it's brought many other opportunities along. And unlike Mario, we've got a very unique skill set. There aren't that many QSAs out there, especially working with large organizations, because from my point of view, whilst I'm a consultant, I consult to the internal business. So I've got that unique perspective that I'm engaged in the actual, all of the internal goings on within a large organization and the different layers of management, etc. So just looking for me to use that knowledge and expertise in these large organizations and give it openly to people outside. Hence for the, LinkedIn, one thing I found is, like we mentioned earlier, there might be lots of posts out there, especially on the contact centers, which I'm focusing on right now, but you put your own personal twist on that article and reach out and ask a question and get feedback from people on LinkedIn. It's helping to build that brand, and you are that particular person in that area, and it does work. It's a lot of, like yourself, it's off your own back. You make the decision. You really need to commit to it and spend the time in the right areas, and seeking guidance from other experts like yourself and Peter from their personal branding. LinkedIn really helps there. Like I said earlier, You know, if I'm on a call to somebody and I'm trying to explain something and understand the audience who I'm talking to, I will use LinkedIn as that tool to figure out what it is they are and who they are. And then hopefully, you know, outside of BT, in the future, who knows what happens in the world, right? With COVID and everything that's going on, will I still be at BT in the next 2 or 3 years? So for me, looking ahead, I've always got this 2-year plan. Where am I going to be in the next few years? Am I still going to be here? You know, do I need to really build that brand up? And that's the reason. And it does work. And talking to people like yourself and Peter obviously helps kind of guide those reins. But that's my plan anyway. You know, we don't know where we're going to be in the next few years. I know where I'd like to be in the next couple of years. So building that personal brand for myself and my speciality and uniqueness is what I'm looking to achieve.
You're basically safeguarding your own future, giving yourself the best possible opportunity to execute on where you'd want to be, right? Which I think is super smart. You know, it's like investing in your nutritious food because you want to live longer.
Yeah.
Exercising. It's about thinking about the longer term, not just the shorter term.
Yeah, no, exactly. And one thing that really made me think was after speaking to Peter, I happened to be asked to do a VendorCon webinar where I was asked to do a presentation about, you know, what is it I'm about. And it was when I was putting that presentation together, I actually realized what a unique, you know, kind of exposure to large organizations and data security in general I've got. And I should focus on that and make the most of it. And that's kind of led on to other things. So I was contacted last week for PCI London. I've asked to join a discussion panel, but through conversations and obviously the person reviewing my LinkedIn profile, that's led to being one of the keynote speakers for that kind of session around contact centers. So again, you know, LinkedIn and obviously selling myself on the calls has really helped. So it does work. And like you say, it's building for the future.
I think there's 2 things here. Well, there's a few things. Is that when we spoke, Simon, is that, you know, you had all of this experience and yet you weren't demonstrating it. Yeah. So, and you were like the best kept secret, you know, in PCI, and that's at that particular time. And, you know, just by, not saying you wouldn't have necessarily got there, you know, without doing those things, but it helps. Okay. And you know, I speak to, again, a lot of people when it comes to personal branding, especially senior leaders, they fall in 2 camps. They understand the value of it, haven't got time for it, or it makes them physically sick, you know, in terms of, you know, talking about themselves or anything like that. And people, you know, people think that you've either got to be super funny or you've got to be, you know, the market leader in those areas. And it's just simply not the case. You know, all of the ones that I know and have worked with and placed all have a good personal brand. It doesn't mean it's necessarily the best. They have a good personal brand that allows them, you know, as you talked about, Mario, organizations to understand them and their strategy, and it resonates with them. And one of the biggest things that I come up against all the time is the culture. You know, CISO saying, you know, we don't have the right culture, or the organization's not bought into it, or and more often than not, it's because they're siloed individuals or teams in an organization, and they don't have the time or the capability to get out there and start to build their personal brand that talks about their security strategy as well. So, you know, by doing this, it works both internally, you know, in your organization, but externally as well. You're more likely to get engagements that suit your skills, suit your culture, and, you know, your preferences. And that's one of the biggest parts, because all of the people on this call, no doubt, will all be experts in their field. Okay, they'll all be highly proficient senior individuals, you know, that are, you know, top of their field. You know, and security is a niche area that's, you know, everyone talks about the skills gap and all this sort of stuff. So you're in high demand. So are you going to struggle to get a job? No, probably not. You know, is the truth of the matter. Some people do, but they're not struggling to get a job because they're not good at their job. It's just because there's somebody else that can do it and will take that role on. And as I say to everybody, is that you've got 2 opportunities in life when you go into a new company, is that you can work with a company and they're both exactly the same roles. You can have one where the culture will match you and one where it won't. And they're exactly the same roles. But if you spend all of your time butting heads with people because your approach and your style and your personal brand doesn't match that organization, then, you know, it doesn't make you bad at your job. It makes you're in the wrong culture. And whose fault is it there? Is it them for hiring you, or you for not recognizing, you know, that your approach and your style? So, you know, that's why, you know, personal brand, and, you know, Mario mentioned it, is that actually an organization engages you because they're bought into you before they've even spoken to you. You know, that person looks good. That person is talking my language. You know, that person is sharing some really expert views on an area that we're particularly interested in, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think really interesting points there, Pete. Well, I just want to address a question or a comment that's come in from the chat from Philippe. Thank you for this. He agrees with Simon whether not all organizations will support an employee's own branding activities. I want to dive into that a little bit because it actually feeds what I was going to say anyway. So I personally believe that a personal brand is not something that is unique to LinkedIn, right? We've all had one since the day we started life, right? We had a personal brand in school. We have a personal brand in our friendship groups. We have a personal brand in our family network. We've got a personal brand in our employment. So it's the definition of personal brand is effectively like the perception you leave with others based on your knowledge, your experience, and your personality, right? That's it. So it's what you leave with people based on that. So Philippe, I imagine if an organization didn't agree with the things you were going to say online, they probably wouldn't necessarily agree with the things you're going to say offline, because it should be very, very similar. Mario, do you have any opinion on that, on whether or not, on how people can work out whether they can build an online personal brand and satisfy their employers' needs?
Yep. So I've got I have a few ideas on that because I found myself in the past in kind of a similar situation. So I'm going to use an analogy here, right? So for those of us who have kids, right? So when you've got kids and you tell them you need to be 1 meter away from the stove, okay? He's going to put his fingers on the line, right? Yeah. And then sometimes he's going to put his feet off and see if something happens, right? I think that's a good analogy, right? That I take into this type of space. So obviously, if for confidentiality reasons, you should not be talking about stuff that happens internally in your organization, right? You will certainly get into a lot of trouble, particularly in security, if you're taking that approach. But there are two aspects to it. One of them is starting on the mechanics of being a content producer, right? That's one aspect of it. The other one is the type of the exact type of content you put out there, right? So let's say getting through the mental barrier of being a content producer, I would say is challenge number one. And to do that, you can kind of be within the lines that you think your employer sets for you, whether explicitly or implicitly, and just say, look, you learned about a new tool. Okay, let's say Chef Inspect Compliance as Code. Learn about a new tool, write a series of blog posts on how you use it, set your own stuff in your own lab, get into the habit of producing content, right? Things that you know for sure aren't going to be problematic with your employer, right? Talking about a new tool and how you learn what you've learned by using it, talking about a new security framework like PCI DSS, like a SAPSA security architecture, whatever that is maybe the case. Start with producing content. That is challenge number one. And then try and over time build on that. And the thing is, these days, no one usually takes a role for more than 2 to like 7, 8 years, right? So even if you're in the situation now where you know that your employer isn't supportive, if you start building the habit of putting content out there, when you apply for your next role, you can have that conversation from the beginning. Look, I'm a content producer. I do these things, right? Are you okay with that? And then you've already built a pipeline of content that you can point people to. You've already made sure that you are kind of below the line of what it is your current employer is comfortable with. And when you go into your next role, then that can become a prerequisite. You say, look, if you're not happy with me producing content, then maybe this is not meant to be.
I think I'll add to that, Mario, because I know for certain that when people start saying produce content, people go, I haven't got time for that. You know, I really haven't. And I've had the same conversation, and I'm pretty much, you know, I'm sure I said this exact same thing to Sean when he said, you know, we need, but then, so content isn't about writing long form, you know, full on articles. And, you know, yes, if you've got time to do that and your organization allows you to do that from a branding perspective, that's fine. But, you know, the organization does not own your personal brand. They own their personal brand. So you can talk about anything security related, you know, any area of your expertise, and, on your LinkedIn profile, unless they, I know there are some organizations, if you work central government, whatever, defense, you might not be able to comment on things on LinkedIn. There are a few things where that may, stop you, but you can still have your own personal brand. You can still have a LinkedIn profile and you can still comment and like and share. And, one of the things that we, Simon and I talked about was, stop flirting with LinkedIn, stop getting involved in conversations that don't necessarily contribute to your personal brand. Yes, talk to your friends and associates and colleagues, but get involved in forums, your areas of expertise, get involved in industry sector conversations that allows you to demonstrate your expertise. And more often than not, the things that you are knowledgeable about are not IP owned by your organization, they're owned by you from all of your experience that you've gained. So just talking about your experience in the security domain, whatever area it is, whether it's project, program management, change, transformation, technical, whatever, you can talk about that freely without upsetting anybody, and on LinkedIn on a regular basis.
Yeah, I love that. Can I just add, so Derry's just put a question in, which is really, really smart and really interesting. So LinkedIn clearly presents potential opportunities, but if you get it wrong in terms of the content or opinions, for example, it can backfire spectacularly. So it's tricky to balance. It's a tricky balance of promoting you and your approach content, not saying the wrong thing, but also trying to stand out. What's the panel's view on this? I'll give you my view first, right? So I think I'd like to know a bit more about the spectacular backfires that maybe you're referring to, and if anyone's got one, they can share. But I think it's when the only chance you have of really backfiring is when you try and be someone you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's when you're trying to talk about a topic you don't know very well, to invent stories or ideas or issues that aren't real, or you go beyond the boundary of, like you say, you give away some information that is absolutely like fundamentally secret or whatever. But if I base all of my content on my day-to-day activity, and when I put a post up, I like to share opinion, because opinion is what separates me from someone who just says, this is how to do something. I like to put out helpful content as well, but I do like to give my opinion. But I always say to myself, if challenged, would I say this opinion in real life? If I sat in front of you today and had a coffee, would I stand for this opinion? And if the answer is no, I'm trying to, almost create a little bit of a stir on LinkedIn, but it's not really how I feel, I would not post it. And I can guarantee people do that. There's a lot of people out there that they latch onto themes online and they try and get really opinionated, and they see it gathers momentum for other people. But actually that builds a brand that is not personal to you. That's creating a caricature of you rather than, representing who you truly are. So I don't know what you would imagine you'd say that would backfire spectacularly. But I am super open to getting the opinions of the panel on that. And I mean, Simon, have you got any opinion on that?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously working for BT, and on the security side, I was going to comment on Philippe's conversation. I have got to be very careful about what I say because of the nature of the work I do, and obviously giving trade secrets away. But you are totally right that there are situations where you can give your own formed opinion on a particular piece of work. So, I'm not going to comment on bits of work that I'm currently engaged with today because obviously it's sensitive internally. And at BT, you can imagine we have a whole process to go through. So every time I want to do anything publicly, like this, for example, I have to get approval from a particular team within the organization. I have to articulate what it is I'm doing, etc. So yes, it can be difficult. But then also after my conversation with Pete, I've set up my own website now, a forum, a blog, if that's what you're going to call it, where a colleague of mine, we're going to get reach together and give our own opinions on articles. So, I'll give my opinion on contact centers, what that might mean for organizations out there to then share with the rest of the world as it was. But again, that will form my opinion. And I have had to get stuff vetted by BT to ensure that, it's not it's not getting me into trouble, basically, because one thing I don't want to do is, put my own job at risk, but still give my own opinion. So I can understand people's concerns, but you are right that, it doesn't necessarily have to be about what you're doing. It can be taking Mario's, I can give my opinion on PCI at the end of the day and the way I would implement PCI or the way I see the intent of each objective. And there's no reason for doing that. And then moving on to your point, Sean, about, caricatures of people. I can think of people in my industry that are quite vocal on LinkedIn, but in my opinion, the commenting on stuff maybe that's a bit out of there. Obviously, the perception rather than promoting them will be kind of putting them out there as somebody who just complains. So he's complaining about everything rather than giving a solution at the end of it. If you're going to point out something's wrong, then at least give your opinion on what the solution might be as well. Otherwise, it can be the detriment to you as well.
I always ask myself, like, will this help? Will this help people? Like, and the truth is, and Derry's just commented again, thank you. It really, really, really good point. People in this world have polarized views and they have there's lots of degrees of sensitivity. One thing you can guarantee as a result of putting out content is you will not please everyone. Like, it's impossible. Yeah. Just like in an organization, you come up with a new strategy, a new process, you're going to get some people that buy into it. You're going to get some people that say, I don't agree. And you're going to get some people that just go along with the ride because, they don't have the energy. And it's kind of the same online. I always think you're going to win about 66% of an audience. You're going to get 33% that will agree, 33% that might politely disagree if it is slightly out there. And then you're going to get 33% that are probably going to back you because you've got the confidence to talk. But again, as long as you're not naming names and highlighting specific projects or people and calling out, I've got no interest in ever calling anyone individually out on issues. I always just think to myself, how can I help someone else? Is what I'm going to put out there genuinely going to benefit some people? And that leads to my question for everyone on the panel as well as in the audience. The way I look at LinkedIn is this, right? If you could fill a physical room pre-corona, let's say coronavirus never happened, a physical room full of the exact people that you would love to network with, you'd love to have their business card, you'd love to be on first name terms with, and you would love to have, you'd love to have a relationship with that would benefit you in your career in the future or your business. Who would it be? Like, who would that be? And as a result of that answer, they are the people that your LinkedIn profile should be written in a style to appease to, and your content plan should focus on. Because otherwise you become very, very mixed, very blended. Mario, you made a point before that you decided to niche. Tell us a bit about like how do you picture or visualize that audience that you're trying to nurture?
Yep. So I have usually I have two types of audience in mind because. So I leave it, and that's one of the things that I mentioned on the front page of my blog, securitydifferently.com, is that I'm not the person that is talking about deep security subjects. Right? What I like to write about, which is what excites me personally, it's the stuff that I really like, is kind of the edges of where security touches other domains. Like social practice theory, like complexity, like worldly mapping and evolution. It's those kinds of areas that I like to operate. And basically, what I did was I created actually a worldly map on trying to understand what are the emergent things that are appearing in terms of security, right? So stuff like compliance as code, safety engineering, resilience engineering, world mapping in Cynefin, quantitative approaches to risk management, like the FAIR framework. So those are all things that are on the rise. We can see that they're taking up in the industry and starting to get more adopted, but it's still not something that everyone is talking about. Right. So strategically, from my perspective, what I'm doing now is that I'm writing stuff now, knowing that I don't have much engagement because it's things that are foreign to most people. But I know that in 3 to 5 years' time, because of the update that they're taking, when you look for content on those, my name will be one at the top because I've been talking about it for a long time. Right. So it for me, it does two things. First, it forces me to learn more about those, right? And as with anything that is emergent, look, if I'm focusing on 8, probably 3 or 4 of them will end up being duds, right? The industry will actually not take them up, but the other ones will, right? And the ones that will, I'm kind of, my approach is that the few that will then help me create that to be that go-to person with regards to those domains.
I love it. Again, it's all about future-proofing, isn't it? It's about thinking a bit further ahead. and genuinely, I mean, I don't know you very well, but I already get a very strong desire that you care about your community, that you care about genuinely helping people. It's not just about yourself. If this whole agenda is about, I want to look great in the public eye, I don't know. I'm not that way inclined personally. I want to help people. I want to give away. If I know something that will help others, that isn't sensitive, I'm prepared to give it away, because I know that, you know, free advice is what we're all looking for.
I think there
was actually back to a comment on chat as well, which is, and that happened to me twice, that I kind of ended up doing a lot of good work for free, right? The thing in that happened, and I still expect it to happen more, right? What I ask myself is, what is the alternative, right? Not putting my name out there, not voicing my opinions, then what does that mean strategically 10 years down the line when I haven't been proactive in just helping people for free and hoping that one day the returns will come back, right?
Yeah, I think just to pick up on a point you mentioned there, Mario, about, you know, and Sean, about caring, and again, that's, you know, probably the one common thing that everybody shares, you know, that's put on in this area. Yes, people get into it because it's a great career and things like that, but ultimately, you know, you're responsible for protecting either an organisation or, you know, people's, you know, secure information, data, etc. So, you know, you are custodians of the company ultimately. You know, if a company is, you know, suffers a breach or something else, then, you know, ultimately you guys are responsible for it, and, you know, all eyes turn to you. So, and when we're talking about personal brand, is that your personal brand is, but, you know, 9 times out of 10 protecting the organization's brand and everything that goes with that. So, you know, one thing that you all share is that you care for looking after either the organization or people, you know, that you're working for. So, you know, if by sharing your information you're helping that organization, you know, actually focusing on helping people, then, you know, you're never going to get any backlash. You know, I mean, I did a post last week, and it started a war amongst CISOs in terms of, you know, I just listed the top 10 fastest growing skills, and I was sort of vague on purpose because I did not agree with the list, but it is live data. And I didn't say they were the top skills. I just said they were the fastest growing, and it all kicked off. And, you know, but what happened from that was that I had lots of people contact me saying, you know, really interesting information, keen to know more, and they've connected with me as a result of that information. Now, there was clearly some people that disagree with it, but I didn't disagree with them. They were disagreeing with the data, and that's fine. But I had an opinion on it, and as a result of that, you know, my network has grown, and, you know, I've actually, you know, started working with a new client as a result of it. So, you know, whilst it may be controversial and there may be people that doesn't like it, there's always going to be people that buy into you. And that's the point. It's your personal brand. If people don't buy into you and your personal brand, then so what? You know, what you want to focus on is the people that you're trying to help, as Sean mentioned, and getting your message off, because your message isn't going to be wrong. You know, whether people agree with it or not, that's besides the point. You know, and if someone says to you, oh, by the way, you could do this, or that's wrong, you might want to do that. Great. Everyone's moved on a step. You know, everyone's, you know, that helping that individual or that group of people that you're focusing on, everybody has moved forward a step. And that's personal branding. It's not a case of going out there saying, look at me, I'm the best in the world at everything.
No. Well, I want to ask a quick question to the audience. So can you categorize now, you know, who you would like to fill in that digital room, which is LinkedIn? Like which type of people, based on job title, demographic, board level, whatever, can you categorize the types of people you would like to engage on LinkedIn? You would like to, you know, read your
comment in the chat.
Yeah. So if you're in the chat, just let me know yes or no. Can you categorize that mentally now? Most people, I imagine, you know, would be able to do that. You can see, you know, and I try and make it as tight as it can be, like Mario did. I wouldn't try and speak to everyone. I try and think about a community that you want to talk to. And then would you say, how confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10 that 10 being totally confident, 1 being no idea, that you understand the ambitions and challenges that these people are going through right now? So how confident are you on a scale of 1 to 10 that you understand the ambitions and the challenges that these people are going through right now in their role, in their lives? So James has kicked us straight off with a 7, Melissa with a 6, 7 and 8, 6. These are really good numbers, you know? These are strong numbers, guys. So what you're telling me is you do understand your industry. So when I come to producing content, and I reckon Simon and Mario can add to this, I think about those 2 levers, ambition and pain, ambition and challenge. So if I know, and sometimes I just have to pick up the phone and ask those questions. I speak to colleagues, I speak to clients, and I say, what are the 2, what's the hardest thing about being you right now? And also, where do you want to get to in your career? Or what are you trying to achieve? Why do you even do this job? And then I'm always collecting live data in my conversations. And when I hear the same themes coming up 2-3 times, I'm like, content idea. You know, so if you hear this same challenge and you actually have some insights that can help someone overcome that, you know, rather than just having the one-on-one phone call with that person, put together some information. Mario, would you agree with that? Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. So I have actually secured an example of exactly that. So talking with companies back when I was doing consulting work, I saw the same problem everywhere, right? Which was in particular that their security policies were actually a business liability. So I wrote an article about it. Why your security policies are business liability and what to do about it. Right? It was kind of a blog post that I wrote that was actually quite well received, and I explained, look, I think this is the problem and this is what you can do about it. Ended up being a very successful post overall. But it's exactly that, right? Taking that approach. Is there a problem that I'm seeing that everyone has? And do I think I have an informed opinion about the subject that may be helpful? Yeah, let's write it up.
Yeah.
Love that. Simon, what about you? Anything that you do and you're trying to think about content?
Yeah, I mean, so with this blog that I've started up recently, you know, one of the reasons for that is, you know, I've been a QSA since 2012. And I started out in the contact center arena, which is where I started doing my initial assessments. And I see the same challenges working at BT. You know, we've got 36 contact centers with 20,000 staff in. We use outsourced third parties. There's 4,500 agents in the outsourcers. I do bid work. So when BT are responding through the global and enterprise arms of the business on bids, it's the same old problem in the contact center. You know, how do we secure the credit card data? How do we get it there? How do we reduce scope? How do we take agents away? And that's one of the reasons I've started my own blog. You know, and at the moment I'm writing an article, and that particular article is obviously COVID is the big thing at the moment. So, you know, taking COVID and taking agents to working from home. How have people found that? And like you, I've reached out to various organizations and people in my network of people that I know over the last few years who are in similar industries. And, you know, some people are saying, well, we've been doing working from home for years, Simon. It's not a new thing. And other organizations are saying, well, actually, yeah, it was a big deal for us because we had nothing in the plan, nothing in the pipeline, but it's made us react. So that's going to be the focus around my article. And again, going back to building branding and being aware of supportive organizations, you know, I can't give any of the detail in that blog, but what I can do is generalize of my opinion over the last, you know, 8 years as it was as a QSA and what I've experienced, you know, because as a QSA, the message has always been the same. There's just never been the focus on the contact center area. It's always on the e-commerce or the retail because that's where all the breaches are. But for me, in the future, you know, the e-commerce and the retail are going to get more secure. It's going to be a bit harder for those guys, the bad guys. I mean, at the moment, it's ransomware, isn't it, really? So how does ransomware impact the contact center, for example? You've got 20,000 agents, you know, be to potentially a target from a nation state or something like that for ransomware, then, you know, you want to be concerned about that and just drop some thoughts on that. So, you know, you are right.
Yeah. I think I'd just like to add to that in terms of the 2 parts there. So the customer, so your target customer, if you like, you know, mine is obviously, you know, CISO, security leaders. That's why we're on this and we're doing this sort of thing. And, you know, I want to help my customers, you know, after listening to my customer and telling me what their biggest challenges and their ambitions, you know, that's why I'm doing this, because I'm trying to help my community. By doing that, hopefully, you know, we end up, you know, working together longer term. And you know, for those of you, you know, you've talked about your target customers and how well you understand their challenges, their ambitions and their challenges. I would just like to challenge that a little bit, and it sort of leads to one of the questions that was raised earlier by a guest, is around, how do you, develop your personal brand in an area where, security is not necessarily seen as, or the previous person has left it in a bad state. Is to actually go and speak to them, and you'll be surprised, we're not talking that you've been given a strategy document or the business, plan, and actually you see the business plan and you say, right, that's what they're trying to achieve. Actually understanding what their challenges are, their personal challenges in their role and within, doing their role, not from a security perspective. And it's understanding how you can contribute to helping them achieve what it is they want to achieve. I know that predominantly, a lot of CISO security leaders want access, or they want their role to be a board level role. How do they get access to that? It isn't by being a security, being a CISO. It's by engaging with them at a different level. And this is why when I speak to people, I say that you're not going to get a job by doing that. You have to go and talk to them and understand their business challenges, not necessarily their security challenges. So, to do that, whatever is your group of people, whether, within your organization, is go and understand what it is, what their challenges are, because it might not be security. Security is one of them, but their biggest challenge might be something else, and security could contribute to that, or whatever it is your skill set is on the call. But go and actually find that out, as opposed to just assuming because you've been given a strategy document and some deliverables and et cetera, et cetera. So, and to move that on, making sure that you contribute to that on an ongoing basis, rather than just going and saying what are your problems right now, is keep checking back in with those people, because then you start to partner with those individuals, and then you start to build your personal brand. And one of the comments was, vary, my role, my target audience is wide and varied. Then you need to do that lots and lots of times across the organization, because every organization, every person in the business is going to have different challenges and ambitions when you're trying to deliver your security strategy. We're doing it in the minute for a DLP program, that's far and wide. So, that individual has to go out and build that target operating model of stakeholders, understand their challenges and do that. And then you can start to produce your content, whether that's internal or external, that contributes to that, helps them be the star of the show, if you like, and helps them be successful in their role. And it's not you taking over their role, or getting involved or stepping on their toes, so to speak. So that's where the content comes from, and how you can think of those ideas, because you probably already know the information. Lovely.
Guys, I want to step into some Q&A now based on time, right? So I'm just going to answer live a question from Clinton Walker. Clinton asked, how would hosting a podcast or video/audio in the cybersecurity space help build his personal brand? Something he's been working on since last year, and he's planning on releasing the new year. Well, really, really solid question. There's a couple of things about personal branding, about podcasting, that are incredibly powerful. There's probably about 5 or 6 reasons, but I'll go into what comes to the front of my mind. Firstly, long-form audio and video content provides a never-ending stream of LinkedIn micro content. So you can repurpose it in so many ways. If you have a 30-minute conversation with a CISO about a specific topic, you can effectively, you could transcribe that into an article and put that onto a LinkedIn blog that would very, very easily. Equally, you can release the full episode on YouTube, on the podcast store, on your website, etc. But also, you can slice and dice that into small little social posts. So whether it's just quotes from the session, or even a little video that you edit up, which is relatively simple using tools. There's a tool here called Subtitle. I'll just put it in the chat. It's $19 a month. It's incredibly intuitive. If you wanted to take a longer form video, slice it up, put some subtitles on it and a banner, and create a 1-minute video for social, perfect. But also the secondary byproduct is you get a FaceTime and the time spent with your target audience. So, listeners are great, but being able to actually invite someone of a certain level onto a show that you want to talk to them about a specific topic is a very, it's an ego boosting invite for people. People are very proud to be asked to be on a podcast, just like a webinar. And it's rare that you get the knockbacks that you might get if you were asking for something else. So you get the lots of content, but you also get the time with people that are really important, that, you know, you can build those lasting relationships. One of the other questions that I'm going to pass on to you, Simon, is from an anonymous attendee. For someone who's beginning their journey to enhance their brand as a security professional, which of these two mediums would you recommend they start with? LinkedIn articles or a personal blog? I appreciate there's other avenues such as publication, speaking opportunities as well. Considering you've just started your own personal blog, I thought you'd be good to answer this.
So I've got the same dilemma here, right? So I've started up a blog, but I also want to uplift my LinkedIn profile. So do I write a LinkedIn article, or do I write a blog and refer all the traffic to my site? So, and I guess one of the lessons I've learned in the last few months as well is, you know, if you're going to have a blog, create some content before you launch the site, because obviously nobody wants to go and look at a site that really hasn't got anything on there. And it is actually, for me, I find it a lot harder than I thought it was going to be initially to put an article together. So I guess the way and I've got a YouTube channel, which I want to do. So like yourself, you know, I have got people to interview in the future, just got to get around to doing it, right, and finding time. But I think my approach is going to be to kind of try and balance the two out. So I'll create a blog article on my website and, you know, kind of advertise it within LinkedIn. But then what I might do is, similar to what you suggested, is take that article that I've written and do a small snippet and write a summary of it within LinkedIn. So you get the, you know, kind of the reviews on LinkedIn and then link that out to the blog. So I think it's going to be a bit of a combination of both. I mean, what do you think?
Well, I would add to it. I would look at the traffic, the reality of LinkedIn. I mean, they're owned by Microsoft, right? They're spending billions. Yeah. And since lockdown, we can guarantee that LinkedIn usage has gone up over 40% globally, right? So trying to get people off LinkedIn right now, I don't actually think it's the right strategy. I'd say play with the platform, live in the platform, exist in the platform. What I'd say you're probably not thinking about is how do you get the right people seeing your LinkedIn, and that's through connections and engagement. So I don't know who it is because it's anonymous, but I would give you a couple of tips, right? The first thing I would say is spend 10 minutes a day strategically connecting with the exact people you would like to read this blog. Okay. So send them a connection request. Hi, you know, I'd love to, it'd be mutually beneficial to connect as we're both in the security arena, whatever. And then what I would then look to do is check out whether these people are producing any content. If they're producing content, like their content, make thoughtful comments on their content, because as soon as you do that, LinkedIn will start to show you their content consistently, because the algorithm only shows you what you do based on what you engage with. So if you start engaging with them, they'll start, you know, you'll start seeing more of their things. But it's by default, when you start engaging with other people's content, guess what they do? They check yours out. They have a look at you. They're going, who is this person making a thoughtful comment? I'll have a look. Then they see your blog, your articles on LinkedIn. So you can drive people back, the right people back through your own endeavors. And it is literally 10 minutes a day, 10, 15 minutes a day invested in I always had 20 people. So I had 20 recruitment owners every morning. I then I try and like 10 posts and comment on 5. Every morning. It takes me about 20 minutes, max, 15, 20 minutes. And I've done that ever since the start. I went from 2 to nearly 25,000 connections in the recruitment community globally. That drives all of my business. And, you know, I used to sit there on hours on end trying to speak to people. Now I spend 15 minutes and I strategically choose who I want to talk to, and I comment, and I see them all coming back around to my content. So, a personal blog is not a bad idea. I'd love to see how yours gets on, Simon.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons for the blog was it's a future reference. You know, if you want to know something about PCI in contact centers, then the idea being there'll be a whole raft of stuff that's searchable and you can refer to, whilst then also doing the LinkedIn stuff to suggest. So I guess I take your point and I agree. And, you know, that was my rationale around having the blog as well, I guess, rather than having to go to LinkedIn to then find an article by me. You could literally just go to the site and there would be a list of all the particular items. So I try and choose subject matter, you know, relevant to what the question might be at the time. So no, it's good.
Well, the way I look at this from a recruitment perspective is, you know, if you can remember far back as taking your records of achievement into an interview, you know, when you were younger, is that this is all your employment assets, you know, your skills and experience assets. So, you know, you'll see no one, you know, wants to read, you know, 1 million pages of, you know, of your, you know, everything you did at a job, you know, from turning up every morning, opening the door, closing the door, you know, walking to your desk. You know, some people's CVs are like that, you know, they literally list every single step, but all of these assets in your blogs and things like that are all beefing your profile up, if you like, that allows someone, if they are looking at your profile, go, oh, and they've got blogs here, oh, and they're coming on that, oh, and they've just talked about a specific area of PCI or seeing product or whatever it is that, the security, they're like, oh, that's relevant to us. And, it starts to engage them bit by bit. And, to add to that, and taking LinkedIn is it will repurpose everything that keeps people on the platform, right? So, long form posts in the feed at the minute are much more effective than doing a long. Blogs still work and their articles still work, but the actual feed is where everyone is engaging and consuming their content. So for those that are trying to target their specific audience, and that includes, by the way, people that you work with. So if you're trying to get access to your CEO and you're not connected to them on LinkedIn, then guess what? Get connected to them. Even if they're not active on LinkedIn and they don't have stuff that you can like and engage, guess what? When they sign in, they are going to see your stuff and they are going to see what you're doing to promote the benefits of your profile, which, by proxy also promotes the organization as well. You're going to start to become on their radar. All of if you've got, huge organizations and, disparate organizations, different locations, start connecting to your stakeholders and people in those areas, because they will be on LinkedIn and they will start to see the stuff. And by association, they'll see that you are the security expert, and the stuff that you start to promote internally starts to land a little bit more, clearer, and they start to listen to it or look at it more often than they did before, because everywhere you go, they're seeing your profile. So even if you're not sitting there thinking, well, I've got nothing to say, I'm just doing this role, that's all I'm interested, that's fine. But it doesn't stop you producing stuff that's relevant to you. And that could be, as a mixture of stuff you can put on there. It doesn't always have to be work. Your personal, views on things, just a bit of humor, whatever it is that you want to share, that's the stuff you should be sharing.
100%. I think that's all we've got time for, but I've really enjoyed it. It's gone so fast.
Yeah.
I think we should have a sequel, guys. I think we should have a round 2. If anyone would like that, let us know in the chat. But I'd say my lasting piece of advice would be to, if you're going to start doing this, be consistent. It's like anything, right? Small incremental actions will have the biggest compound effect. I think what Mario's proven is, those even when he knows the community is small today, that doesn't slow him down. He keeps chipping away at what he's doing. I think I've posted every single day, weekday, since March 2017, and no word of a lie. It's really is. It's a consistent effort. I've had days where I've thought about not doing it, and then I've just kept going. I had a guy who called me up who signed a contract with us, who said he reckons he'd been watching me for a year, which means he's probably seen 250-ish posts before he made any contact with me. But when he did, he knew everything. He was bought into us. There was no need to negotiate. It was a really good transaction. So it was an incredible thing. But everyone takes, people might not engage with you for a long time, but they're watching. They are watching. Pete, thank you for having me on here. I really enjoyed it. And
there's more to come, and we'll be running out more sessions. But I think to leave you with a guiding thought is just start doing it. Commit 10 minutes every morning to sharing your views and engaging with the community that you want to engage with. Don't get involved in fights on LinkedIn unless you've got too much time on your hands, but get involved and start communicating with the people that really matter to you. And before you know it, you will start to see the opportunities come to you and not the other way around.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much.
And just a final thing from me as well, if anybody wants to reach out, more than welcome to. I'm happy to bite your ear and chew your ear off, as it was, and give you my opinion and advice. Whether you follow that, it's nothing. It's just like talking to the kids, isn't it? You can tell them and give them advice based on your history, but it's up to what they do with it. So yeah. And again, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for giving up your time, guys. I really do appreciate it, and hopefully we can do more of this to help the community and start to share ideas and help everyone move on in the way they want to go.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Bye.